If your puppy turns into a tiny tornado with teeth by the end of the day, you're not alone. These wild zoomies and relentless biting are totally normal, and today we're going to talk about why they happen and how to best handle them. Hi, I'm Liz. I'm a trainer and behavior nerd. Welcome to Puppy Primer, where I help you raise a happy, confident puppy step by step. So, all of those bitings, the late night zoomies, and chaos, all of this is typical for our puppy's development. They have these short, exciting bursts of energy that they don't necessarily always know what to do with. And they're exploring the world with the means at their disposal, which a lot of that is their mouth and their paws. So, today I want to talk about what's really behind these behaviors and how to support your puppy so you both thrive. First and foremost is considering if you have met your puppy's needs for the day. So, what does that mean? That might mean that yes, have they had the chance to run around and play and get those zoomies out? Have they met their physical needs? Now, puppies, we're talking about puppies that are 4 or 5 months or less. Their physical needs are going to be fairly minimal, at least compared to what you're going to see in about 3 or 4 months. They are going to need a lot of sleep. They're going to need a lot of rest. They're really not going to have significant physical needs. However, what they do have a lot of right from the beginning is a lot of needs for mental stimulation and a lot of needs for oral stimulation. So you have here Riz tugging with his little hedgehog toy. But what they need in terms of mental enrichment means training, means enrichment as far as needing to seek, to problem solve, to sniff, to use their senses, to explore new things. All of that stuff kind of builds into making sure that they are mentally stimulated throughout the day and getting a chance to exercise their jaws, to use their mouths, helps not only with teething pain and just with their natural curiosity and outlets, but also gives them an outlet for that energy that they would normally expel in their mouths. So we really want a lot of opportunities for appropriate outlets for chewing, for licking, and for exploring different surfaces and different textures with their mouths. That said, our puppies are going to need a lot of downtime. So, for as much enrichment and as much excitement as they need, as much socialization as we are giving them, that we talked about in episode 2, if you want more details on puppy socialization, go head on over there. They also need a whole lot of downtime. What that means is preparing their environment to encourage restfulness, to encourage self-soothing, to encourage self-entertainment, as you have Riz here doing with his turkey tendon. And what that means might be either safe enclosures like crates or playpens. It might mean gated areas. It might mean restricting them to one room or one area of a room that is puppy safe. And what that means is that there's nothing that they can chew on or destroy that is unsafe for them or is going to be destructive to the house. There is nothing for them to get into, and there is lots of soft, comfortable places to rest. Because alone time is essential not only for just your puppy getting used to spending some time on their own and entertaining themselves, but it also is helpful for encouraging them to sleep. Puppies need so much sleep, often more than we think they need, even because it's essential for that brain development. So much is happening for them in these first few weeks and months that they really need that downtime in order to process it all. They really need that sleep. So being able to spend time in their enclosure where they're not going to be interrupted and they're getting this rest that's so vital to them is going to give them the opportunity for that brain development and for that rest that is going to help them regulate their system overall and prevent these big outbursts of energy from happening quite as often or being quite as intense or as long. In terms of skill building, one of the things that we can really focus on here is building our puppies' regulation skills, or at least gauging what their natural abilities are. Some puppies have a really phenomenal off switch that they are just born with. Other puppies and other owners of puppies are not quite so lucky in that, and that off switch has to be built kind of from the ground up. So after big play sessions, after big exciting socialization field trips, out after you've played some tug, after you've done a little training session and they're really excited, watch what they do next. How do they come down from that? Is that something that is easy enough for them to just go, okay, and curl up and settle on your lap? Do they need maybe a couple treats to encourage them into a down and to settle near you, or a chew? Or do what they really need is a crate break to fully decompress, let things go, handle being alone, and getting away from the constant stimulation of their entire world in order to really truly settle. Sometimes that might mean a crate break. Sometimes that means a crate with a cover and white noise. And it might differ from week to week, from moment to moment, or from stimuli to stimuli. So make sure you're using kind of the information that you're gaining about how your puppy regulates themselves to guide your approach as they're growing into adolescence, which adolescence is a huge time for building arousal regulation skills and starting to really, really fine tune their ability to bring themselves high and bring themselves back down. But understanding what those regulation needs are going to be can start while they're still very, very young, while they're still babies, and can form your approach and form what steps you need to take in order to help them build these skills. So start checking out how they regulate themselves, how well they regulate themselves, and what really poses a challenge now, so you're more prepared for it as they grow older. And then there is biting. So, talking about mouthy puppies is always a popular topic. It's always an area of concern, especially for new pet parents and especially if you have kids in the house. So, some things to keep in mind in terms of puppies, especially when they're biting. Adolescent biting is almost its own thing. But when we're talking about a puppy who's 4, maybe less than 6 months old, often there's a lot of curious exploratory mouthing versus over aroused biting. And one of the things that I want you to watch for is where you see your puppy's biting taking place and what you would classify that biting as. So what you see here that I'm kind of allowing to happen with Riz is very much maybe some exploratory mouthing with maybe a little bit of self-soothing chewing. I'm pretty okay with my puppy exploratory mouthing on my skin, provided that they aren't going terribly hard. That may be something you want to interrupt immediately with kids, especially young kids, if it'll damage the relationship between the puppy and them. However, exploratory mouthing is by its nature not going to end up very hard. However, if they're getting over aroused or if they're using you to self soothe and they are over aroused, you might see harder biting. And those are the moments to offer redirection. So, moving away from your puppy, calling them over to you so you've broken the chain of the behavior, and giving them a toy, giving them a chew, giving them something to do. Because very often, what you're seeing when a puppy is biting because they're over aroused either means they are over or understimulated. And that's usually when you see any of these big, big explosions of excitement, explosions of arousal behavior, whether it's zooming around, whether it's biting, whatever it may be, whether it's destructive chewing, is they either have not had enough activities to fulfill their needs, or they really, really need some rest. So kind of it's also a moment to take a pulse to see what does my puppy likely need right now and help them get those outlets. So we don't want to punish the biting regardless of where it's coming from. What we want to do is we want to evaluate what my puppy needs in this moment, interrupt the behavior, encourage them over to you, bring them, get some good behavior out of them, and then find them an appropriate outlet. Now, where that might not take place or where that might be a different cause is if you are seeing any fearful behavior in your puppy, any resource guarding, any defensive behaviors, or what you might call protective behaviors in your puppy. If you're seeing any of those, please reach out to me directly. When we get into those kinds of biting, that is not typical puppy biting. That is some behavioral concerns that they will not grow out of, and they will need some guidance in order to overcome. So definitely get in touch with me and we can work on that specifically with your pup. So, as a review, Puppy crazies are entirely normal behaviors, developmentally appropriate for your puppy in the state of growth that they're in. However, they're entirely solvable with enrichment, management, rest, and guidance. Things that you can try include making sure that they have all of these things available to them and practice these in multiple environments. One of the things I really like to have is a pop up tent like this one that Riz has used since he was a baby puppy. He's got a lot of space to explore the world, but he also has his carrier in there that he will often choose to jump into in order to nap and have kind of an extra enclosed and cozy space for him to rest. The other thing to watch, especially as your puppy is out and about in the world on socialization field trips like this one, while you're watching their energy output and their enrichment and their ability to rest, is also to watch their natural regulation skills. So in these situations, do they need to be kind of ushered into that carrier and then they take a nap? Do they offer that nap? Do they take the initiative to go ahead into their carrier and sleep anyway? Are they happy to sleep out while everything is going on in this more open space? What does their need for rest look like? What does their need for regulation look like? And how do they meet those needs on their own? And where do they need some support from you? All of those things factor into managing your puppy's crazies and making sure that they don't manage to drive you crazy as well. Thank you, as always, for watching. And if this helped you breathe easier about the puppy crazies, go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and check out the rest of the Puppy Primer series. You can also reach me at www.likemagicdogtraining.com or on any of my other social media platforms where I'm always posting tips and glimpses into my trainer life, into my client dogs, and into dog behavior as a whole.